There is a number attached to your name inside your company that you are not allowed to see. It's a flight risk score. Software generates it. Your tenure, your survey answers, your pay against your peers, how long since your last promotion. It assigns you a probability, and it hands that probability to someone above you. Most people assume a high score means the company fights to keep them. One retention vendor describes what actually happens in its own sales material. Flight risks who are considered valuable get attention and effort. Flight risks who are not considered valuable are allowed to leave on their own, which saves the company the cost of firing them and paying compensation. The score doesn't protect you, it sorts you, and by the time you're thinking about leaving, the sort already happened. So here's what changes the inputs. The first one is finding out what a stranger would pay you. Not what you earn, not what your band says, what a company that has never met you would pay to hire you on Monday. Most people are carrying a number in their head that was set on the worst day of their negotiating life, the day they had no options and said yes. Every raise since has been a percentage of that number. 4% of a bad decision, compounding quietly for a decade. You cannot negotiate against a market you've never looked at, and the company knows the market. It runs comp benchmarking every year. You're the only one in the conversation working from memory. The second is keeping a record the company doesn't own. Not for the performance review, for the meeting where someone says the project failed and your name is on it. Dates, decisions, who asked for what, the week the direction changed, and who changed it. A note on your own phone. Nothing dramatic, nothing paranoid. 3 lines on a Friday. It sits there for years, doing absolutely nothing. And then, one afternoon, it does everything. Third, turn hallway promises into paper. Your manager tells you the promotion is coming after the reorg. He tells you this while walking, holding a coffee, half looking at his phone. It takes him 9 seconds, and it costs him nothing. Send the follow-up message. Friendly, 2 lines, just capturing what we discussed. He will not mind. He will not remember. And the promise will now exist somewhere other than his memory, which is the only place it was ever going to live, right up until the quarter he needs it not to. The fourth move is reading your own contract on a slow Tuesday. The clauses that govern the worst month of your working life are sitting in a document you signed in 20 minutes, while someone stood over your shoulder waiting for the pen. Page 9, page 11, the notice period, the restrictive covenant, the clawback on the training they paid for. You will not read that document clearly when you are angry or frightened or already gone. You'll read it at 11 at night, on your phone, after the meeting, looking for something that isn't there. Read it when nothing is at stake and nothing is wrong. It's the cheapest hour you'll ever spend. Fifth, make your work portable. Not the company's files, the proof that you did the thing. The problem, the approach, the outcome, the number. Because everything you built lives in their systems. The dashboard you designed, the process you fixed, the client you saved. All of it accessible right up until 4 in the afternoon on a Thursday, when a badge stops working, and 11 years of evidence disappears behind a login you no longer have. Write it down in your own words, somewhere they can't reach. The sixth is taking the recruiter call, even when you're happy, especially when you're happy. That's when your judgment is clean and your desperation is 0. You are not obligated to want the job. You are not obligated to reply to the second email. You're finding out what your name is worth, from people whose entire business is knowing what names are worth. The person who takes that call every few months and the person who has ignored every one of them for 6 years are not in the same position. They just look like they are, until the day something changes and only one of them has a phone number. Seventh, and most people get this exactly backwards, stop rooting your entire career through one person. Almost everyone invests everything into the relationship with their manager. It feels correct. It feels like the game. But it means your whole position inside the company runs through a single point of failure. One person who can be moved in a reorg, who has their own calibration room to survive, whose interests stop matching yours the moment there's a number to hit and a name that has to be on the list. Build sideways. The people 2 teams over. The person in finance who actually knows how the budget moves. The one who's been there 11 years and remembers why the policy exists. The eighth is being attached to something that doesn't hand over cleanly. Not by hoarding, that gets you managed out and quickly, by being the person the relationship runs through, the one holding the context that doesn't survive a handover document. There is a word for this in the model: criticality. It's a line item sitting next to your replacement cost, and it is one of the very few lines you can move from the outside. Ninth, say no once, early, on something small. The employee who has never declined anything has told the organization exactly where their limits are. There aren't any, and that information does not sit unused. It gets factored in, not maliciously, efficiently. Work flows toward the person who has never said it doesn't fit, the way water finds the low ground. The first no is the expensive one. Every one after it costs less. The 10th is getting known outside the building. A reputation that exists only inside your company is a reputation your company owns. It ends the day the badge stops working. And here is the uncomfortable part. The people who land fastest after a layoff are almost never the ones who were most respected internally. That respect was denominated in a currency that stopped being legal tender at the door. The ones who land in 3 weeks are the ones somebody outside already knew. 11th, interview once a year, even when you're staying. Not to leave, to keep the skill alive. Because interviewing is a skill, and it decays fastest in exactly the people who have been comfortable the longest, which is to say, the people about to need it. And the 12th is runway. Every other move on this list is professional. This one is arithmetic, and it's the only one nobody can take back. 2 graduates are each offered $100,000. One accepts. The other has one conversation and starts at $115,000. With ordinary annual raises and the difference invested, that second person finishes their career with over $1.5 million more. One conversation. And the research on that conversation is not ambiguous. Robert Half found that 85% of Americans who countered an offer got at least some of what they asked for. Among workers between 25 and 35, 87%. Offers are pulled after a counter less than 1% of the time. And around 60% of American workers never ask. That gap, between what actually happens and what people are afraid will happen, is sitting there, unclaimed, every single day. But you can only make that call from a position where hearing no doesn't end you. A mortgage payment turns a negotiation into a hostage situation, and everyone in the room can tell which one they're in. Money is what buys you the ability to say the sentence out loud. Everything above this is theory until you can afford the consequences of using it. Look at the 12 again and notice what isn't on the list. Working harder isn't on it. Being more visible isn't on it. Being valuable, being loyal, being indispensable. None of the words the company uses to describe the behavior that costs it nothing and gets you nowhere. They're one move, 12 times over. Reduce the number of things in your life that only your employer controls. When HP built its own flight risk model, it found something quietly damning. An employee who got promoted without a real raise stayed just as likely to quit. The model saw what the promotion actually was. Access to those scores was restricted to senior managers, who could only see the people beneath them. The number existed. The people it described never met it. That version of you, the risk profile, the replacement cost, the estimate of how hard you would actually be to lose, is being maintained right now, in a system you will never log into, using inputs you didn't know were being collected. You can't see it. You can't appeal it. Nobody is going to tell you which side of the sort you're standing on. You can only change what goes into it, and the window for that is now. While nothing is wrong, while nothing has been decided, while the entire cost of starting is a slow afternoon and a little discomfort. Leverage built under pressure was never leverage. It's just noise you make on the way out.